Hello, Michael Wisner here. This is our first part of a 10-part series on toxins, pollutions in our home, in our environment, and simple things you can do. We did an introduction to this series. I hope you had a chance to watch it. If not, you can. But this is a section that we're going to talk about indoor pollution. And many of you might go, what is that? Well, for instance, the Environmental Protection Agency estimates that there are 50,000 premature deaths in this country every year from indoor pollution. They have estimated that Americans lose $36 billion a year in wages just from illnesses that are caused by indoor pollution. We live in a world of many chemicals. The typical home 100 years ago in this country had about 100 chemical compounds in it. Today, the typical home has up to 10,000 chemical compounds. They're not all toxic, but just go through it. The waxes, the glues, the glass cleaners, the carpet cleaners, the oven cleaners. It goes on and on, the fiberglass insulation. And eventually that adds up to a whole heck of a lot. I mean, just think about somebody, if you have a gas dryer or gas stove oven, those emit carbon dioxide because they burn. Again, that's an indoor pollutant. The typical home today has in 1 year 40 pounds of dust. When I read that scientific report, I went, oh my gosh. So this all adds up to things that actually are impacting our health. There was a study done by the National Science Center a few years ago, I think in conjunction with USC, that showed that women who work in the home in this country have higher incidence of uterine cancer than women who work in factories in this country. So you go, how does that happen? Well, if you're in this country working in a factory with chemicals, you have all sorts of regulations that are actually enforced. You know, you have gloves on, a mask, somebody's monitoring the air, everything has material data safety sheets to warn you about hazardous chemicals. You and I can buy those same things at Home Depot or the supermarket, and we bring them into our home, and no one's protecting us. So it's a real problem. So what is indoor pollution? How does that start? Why is it the second biggest environmental health threat to us? Well, there's a simple fact of physics. Pollution particles, toxins and so forth that are in the air, tend to flow where there's less pressure. It's just like the same as high and low weather pressure systems. So higher pressure tends to flow where there's lower pressure. So particles in the air tend to flow where there's less pressure. So inside your home, inside your office, inside your car, these particles will tend to flow inside. There's a study that was done on people driving on a freeway. They found that the toxins inside the car are anywhere to 2 to 4 times higher than the toxins out on the freeway. And you go, what's that about? You know, and the simple is just a question of pressure. The same thing with your home. The amount of toxins inside your home are going to be higher than outside, like in my garden, because they tend to flow inside the home. So what I always tell to people is the simple, easiest solution, and it costs you no money at all, is open your doors and windows. If you're driving your car down the freeway, even if you have the heater or the air conditioner on, have a crack in the window. Why? It will reverse the pressure and you'll be driving with less pollution particles that you're experiencing a few hours every day when you drive. It's scientifically proven the way to reduce indoor pollution, the most effective and simple and cost-effective way is open your doors and windows. Even in the winter, and it gets cold where I live in the winter, I still every day, and I don't bring chemicals into my home, you can imagine, but ambient pollution from the highway and so forth is going to build up in my home, I know it. So every day I open the doors and windows for a few minutes because it reverses the pressure and cleans the place out. You know, the neighbor's cat might come in, it's okay, because I know it's reversing the pressure. It's a simple thing you can do, and I would recommend you do it subject to weather and safety at least every day, because it will greatly reduce the amount of stuff that's building up in your house that you're exposed to and you're living in. If you have a high-end car, like a Porsche, a Mercedes, a Lexus, a Beamer, those cars, particularly the German cars, have what are called a HEPA filter in their air systems. And a HEPA filter stands for high efficiency pollution abatement removal. And HEPA filters were invented by NASA to filter the air that our astronauts breathe. Most major airlines use HEPA filters in airplanes to filter the air that recycles in an airplane when we fly. HEPA filters will take out particles down to 0.01, 0.03 micron, very small. For instance, a virus is maybe 0.10 microns. So this will filter, a HEPA filter will filter viruses and everything out. So those high-end cars, if you're driving one of those and it has a HEPA filter, you can just turn the air system on in the car, whether the heater or air conditioning is on or off, doesn't matter, and it will be filtering all the air in the car. But if you don't have a high-end car like a Porsche, Mercedes, what have you, crack in the window, almost as good, a lot less expensive, but it will greatly reduce the amount of exposure you're having. Okay, a lot of people ask me, well, what about an air filter? And we've seen a lot of that, particularly during this COVID-19 period. Because people are living at home and they're thinking about viruses and dust and their immune systems, and rightfully they should. And when I say to people is like, when you get to air filters, it's very important that the filter that you purchase has 2 filtrations in one. Okay, and there are many filters that do this. One, you want a HEPA filter. I've just explained what that does, because that will take out very small particles, dust, viruses, bacteria. Things that are invisible in the air. And then you also want a carbon filter, because carbon will take out chemicals. And we're going to talk more and more in this entire series about toxic chemicals. But the carbon will take those toxic chemicals out of the air. So if you have a filter that has within it 2 filtration systems, a HEPA filter and a carbon filter, that's the best. And there are many brands you can buy for this. One of the brands that I like the most is Austin Air, and you can find that on austinair.com. And they have filters that have the HEPA and the carbon filter. Another good brand that I would recommend is IQ Air, and you can go to iqair.com, and they have filters like this that have the carbon and the HEPA filter in one. That will greatly reduce the amount of exposures you have. Now, for years, I've used them in my home, particularly when I had children growing up. I'd have one in each one of their rooms, one in the living room area. These can be easily moved around if you wanted to have one in the kitchen, in your workspace and so forth. You don't have to buy one for every room. And they're portable. And I remember the nanny who used to do cleaning in our home came up to me after I got all these filters. She goes, "What's going on? I'm not having the dust." So there's a lot of benefits to having clean air in your home like this. It reduced the amount of dusting she had to do. It also reduced, obviously, what you're breathing. I've had people who use these air filters, and it reduces, many of them reported it reduces their allergies. So another good reason for them. So yes, I definitely recommend air filters in a home. People ask me about air fresheners. I think that air fresheners, along with bottled water, which I'll talk about later, and cigarettes, are 3 of the biggest consumer rip-offs in history. And it's actually, I talk about air fresheners in my book. You get these fancy ones, you plug them in to an electrical socket, and they poof out this synthetic fragrance every 15 seconds or whatever. If you break open one of those air fresheners and the wax element that has the artificial scent in it, that wax element actually has a carcinogen in it. So here you are paying $12.95 for these plug-in air fresheners, the idea of having cleaner, fresher air, and you're paying good money to potentially poison yourself. I don't think they make sense. Okay, if you want a fresh smell in your home, go out and buy some fresh flowers. If you want to, for instance, get essential oils and put them in water, and they give off a natural scent, essential, they're organic oils, fantastic. These are simple things you do. I mean, worst case, get a spray bottle of water, put some lemon juice in it and spray it. You'll have a nice lemon scent. There are simple ways to create a nice scent in your home without paying good money to poison yourself. In part 5 of this series, I'll be talking about a lot of things that we bring into our home in terms of household products and get into great detail on that. But just for now, no air fresheners. You're not going to clean your air out. One of the things that I think is one of the biggest sources of indoor pollution in a home is this stuff. Wall-to-wall carpeting. 150 years ago, if you had carpeting in your home, it was a handmade throw rug out of wool or fiber or whatever, and they would hand run, and it would be an area rug, and you could take it out and beat it and clean it and put it back in. Well, what happened in the 1950s, 60s, they invented nylon. And so you could take nylon, it's basically made from oil, or synthetic fabric, and you could create these long strings of synthetic fiber. And then they figured out you could cut them and glue them on the back of a hard backing like this. So you actually created a very inexpensive way of covering floors. And while that might be good, it was certainly a lot less expensive than putting hardwood floors or stone floors down or slate floors or whatever you would do. It was more comfortable, maybe more aesthetic than linoleum. But what we've learned over the years is this stuff is a harborer of all sorts of stuff. Scientific studies have shown that a square foot of this stuff has an average of about 10,000 microorganisms in it. This is a breeding ground for all sorts of bad little guys. This is not something you want in your home. Now, I understand in big institutional setting, certain hotels and hallways and stuff like that for quiet and so on, there might be some use for it. But I don't recommend this in your home. Now, it can be expensive, particularly if you're renting a place, to tear out all the carpeting and put in hardwood floors or whatever. But what I will say is, if you can do that over time, replace all this wall-to-wall carpeting with hard surfaces, whether it be hardwood or some of the newer brands of like compounded materials that sort of look like stone or slate, anything but this stuff, because this is something that can really contribute to ill health effects. Certain carpet cleaning chemicals used to clean these wall-to-wall carpetings that these industrial carpet cleaners use have been associated with Kawasaki disease, which is a really super high fever and neurological problem that certain children can get into. And why it's suspected and tied to the indoor carpet and the chemicals is the chemicals they use to clean the carpet, and the fact that kids, young kids particularly, are on the carpet so much every day. So again, not good. Also, the synthetic backing of these carpets, how they glue and so forth, they can off-gas. So when you put in new carpeting, if you've ever noticed, you go into a room that you had just new wall-to-wall carpeting put down, you smell something. You're smelling your chemicals off-gassing. So if you bought a new home and you're watching this and you're going, oh my God, I just bought this new home, I got to tear out all this new carpeting. No, but at very least, get a steam cleaner and go in and clean with just steam, or natural soap, but no chemicals. Just steam clean it, because it will pull the off-gassing chemicals out, and it will get rid of them for you. That's a good tip. And open the doors and windows, because I don't want, if you've gotten into a new environment where you're getting the off-gassing chemicals from this stuff bothering you. Okay, here's another little simple tip that I'm a little bit hesitant to remind you of, but it's actually very important. You know these things? They go into your air conditioner and heater unit. And what they do is they pre-filter air before it goes in as cooled or heated and comes out into your home. Okay? And I want to ask anybody watching, what's the last time you checked this and changed it? And if you have to answer that question like, I don't know, then I would suggest you really check it out. And when you do check it out, when you open up that unit and you take a look at this thing, you're not going to believe what you've been breathing. So this is like about $12. Now there's different sizes based upon the size of your heater or your air conditioning unit. But all the way down from a simple condo or apartment to a large home, they're going to have these in them for the most part. So I always recommend for you to check those and change them regularly. Now you can buy a more expensive one of these online, and I think even Home Depot will have them, what are called electrostatic filters. So they are the same principle as this, the same size as this, but the filters are much better. So they will pre-screen the air going into your heating and air much better than these, okay? And what's also nice about those, you can pull them out, hose them down and clean them, and put them back in. They're reusable. They will greatly increase the efficiency of the air coming into your home. So I definitely recommend you do that. So get rid of that dirty, gauzy thing, pull it out, get a new one, take a look at electrostatic filters to replace them permanently, and you'll have much cleaner, fresh air in your home. Okay, so what else can you do to improve the air quality in your home? Here's one. This thing, hello. There are certain plants, this is a spider plant, there are certain plants that have been scientifically studied that will actually remove things like heavy metals, which is in all air pollution, from the air. So this is a spider plant. There are two other plants that have scientifically been proven that will do this in your home: the Boston fern and the dwarf palm plant. All three of those have been scientifically proven to remove toxins from the air in your home. So it adds some aesthetics. You can get them small or large, put them around, water them correctly. I don't always do that. I end up killing plants. But you can get them at your local garden store, and they'll greatly improve the air quality in your home. Plus, they emit oxygen. So you get a filtration plus the emission of oxygen. Okay, so open your doors and windows. I hope the tips we covered today greatly improve the air quality in the home you live. And I think you understand why it's so important in terms of what we know in science air pollution inside a home or an office can do to yours and your family's health. So there's simple things you can do. Like I said in my original introduction to this series, you don't have to move on top of Mount Shasta, live in a bubble, and eat roots and tubers. But these are simple things you can do that can greatly improve the quality and the standard of your own and your family's health. Our next segment is going to be beginning a series of parts where we talk about things that we bring into our homes. And we're going to start with one that's really important to all of us, and that's water. So I'll see you on the next part, and we'll talk about water.